Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Crypto Archives podcast. We're here with Waj, who is one of the longtime content creators in crypto and DeFi. Really great stuff from him, and finally get to have him on here as well to talk a little bit about himself and his journey in crypto. So this should be pretty exciting. GM, sir.
GM, pleasure to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on, man. I've seen your stuff for a long time, and I think you're one of the best content creators in the DeFi space right now. So really, it's a real pleasure to have you on. So
Thank you for the kind words. I think there's a lot of really, really good content creators out there. So I'm just trying. I don't think I'm the best by any means, but appreciate the kind words.
of course, of course. So I think we should just get into your story with crypto and kind of talk about maybe how you got into crypto and how has your journey been. Were you a trader? Were you an investor? Did you start working for projects early on?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess my journey really started when I was actually in medical school. I think I realized that actually I need to think about other alternative ways to kind of grow your portfolio. I think just the standard way of just trading your time for money by getting a job, for example, is not really the right way to go. And you need to hold a variety of assets. And so I think this was like when I was in my, probably 19 or 20 years old, actually. I think at that point, that's when I started like really investing. I think one day I just kind of stumbled upon the idea of crypto as well. It wasn't too long after that we started to see like the very, very first DeFi apps come to fruition. I think we're talking about 2020. I just got hooked straight away by the idea that, I can basically deposit assets here and earn yield. And I think there was this whole concept of liquidity mining, which was
Mm,
pretty much going crazy at that time. And that's what pretty much hooked me. And I think at the time, I actually used to make YouTube videos about medical school. I actually used to make videos about the life of a
okay.
medical student, how to get good grades, and things like that. And interestingly, what happened was, a lot of my friends at the time that were with me in university would ask me, "Oh, what is this? What is this DeFi thing? What is this Uniswap? How do I use it?" I just thought, okay, rather than me explaining to each of you one by one, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make a video. You can all watch it in your own time whenever you want. So all of a sudden, randomly, I just decided to make like this, these like fundamental but like kind of tutorial based videos. Quite a few years ago. We're talking 2020, 2021. There was some basic videos I used to make as well, like how to actually buy crypto. Like it was actually a
Mm,
guide on how to go onto Coinbase and like how to actually on ramp and buy yourself some
right.
Bitcoin. Um, but yeah, I guess not too long after that, I basically scrapped the idea of making videos about medical school. I deleted them all, and just started making more videos about crypto because I think it was just one of the things that just interested me so much. So that's pretty much how I got into it, and that's pretty much how my content journey started as well.
That's awesome. So there's a secret doctor YouTube channel from War somewhere out there.
It's
If we
actually
look
the
hard
same
enough.
channel. It's the
Is
same
it?
channel. I've just hidden the
You're
videos,
just hitting the
but
videos. Okay.
they actually are still there today.
Interesting. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you got into crypto around 2020 through like liquidity mining, that era. Were you able to catch the majority of DeFi Summer and kind of have fun with those projects and those schemes that were around
Yeah,
there?
I had a lot of fun with that. I think one thing to remember is I was a really broke student back then,
Mm,
and so like my capital that I was playing around with was like really, really small, and so I wasn't able to make it big. Like I see a lot of people were able to during that time, but I definitely got a lot of value from just like being early and like learning about these mechanics, and I think throughout the rest of last cycle, I was able to kind of benefit a lot from that.
very cool. Very cool. So maybe we can talk about your transition from working as a doctor to entering DeFi and becoming a full time content creator, and just go through maybe your thought process when that happened, and then maybe your motivations as well.
Yeah, I think so like it was during medical school when I actually started to really appreciate and really love crypto, especially what it is today. But obviously, I finished medical school and I started working full time as a doctor. And I think being a doctor is great. I actually love it. I still work as a doctor today, actually. And I think it's like one of the things that I feel like I can really give back to society or actually provide value to people in real life. I usually work in like acute medicine, so we see a lot of really sick patients at times. Sometimes patients are at the cusp of death, and you
Mm.
can do things, whether it's like creating management plans or being there in an emergency situation and kind of performing some sort of treatment that can actually help a patient. And I find that like one of the most valuable things that I can do. It gives me a lot of satisfaction. It doesn't pay very well, but it still is something that I really enjoy. At the same time, like there's this industry that's innovating, whether you like it or not, that I find like really, really, really enjoyable. And I think it's like one of these moments where you might not get this opportunity ever again in your lifetime to be in an industry that's innovating and growing and potentially disrupting the world, whether it's from a finance based or whatever. So for me, like when I first started working, I used to work full time, but like in the evenings or on weekends or days that I had off, I basically used to just contribute wherever I could to various different protocols, especially in the DeFi space, predominantly in a non-tech capacity because that's kind of where my expertise lie. And I did that for quite a few years until about last year, I should say. And last year, we went through this bear market of 2022 and 2023, and kind of things were potentially, going to pick up. And I just got this, opportunity to actually try and work full time. And I thought to myself, look, I can carry on working as a doctor, which is great, and I'll carry on progressing. Or I can take a chance and try this new industry out and see what happens. And I might not get this opportunity again, but I'll tell you one thing: I can always go back to medicine anytime I want. It's pretty straightforward
Right.
process. So for me, I thought, look, I'm still in my 20s. I'm young. I've got an opportunity here. Why don't I try this, see what happens, and if it works out well, it works out well. If it doesn't, I'm just going to go back to medicine. It was obviously I had to think about like a lot of things, like you have to worry about your finances. If you're working at a startup in crypto, that startup might not exist a few months down the line. If you've got dependencies, if you've got rent to pay or mortgage to pay, and all of these other things, you do have to worry about that as well. But I thought there's no better time than now for me to try something like this, and I just went for it essentially. And so far, it's been about a year and 4 months, or a year and a few months that I've been working full
Mm.
time. I really enjoy it. I've had such a good time. It's been a really crazy experience. Learned a lot, and yeah, I'm very excited to see what happens next.
Very awesome, man. That's cool to hear. Did you have like a decent following before you actually committed to being full Web3, or or was it more of like a build up and you were still like looking for positions to work in, and it wasn't as clear exactly what your path was going to be?
Yeah, I actually had like a pinned post on my profile for ages, which was basically me saying, "Look, I'm gonna try going full time. I'm gonna leave medicine," and I basically went part-time medicine.
Mm.
And like I was in that post, I basically wrote like, I'm looking for an opportunity. Don't know what it's going to be. Pretty nervous, but pretty excited at the same time.
Right.
And I was really lucky because like 2 weeks after that, someone called Bob came up to me and was like, we've got this opportunity at IVX. Do you want to come and help us build the future of derivatives? And I was like, you know what? Go on then. I'll try it out. And since then, it's been pretty good.
Hmm. Yeah, Bob's actually, I've known Bob for some time as well. He's a good guy. We'll have him on here as well at some point probably. So
Oh, absolutely,
very cool.
absolutely. But
Well,
yeah, I didn't I
there.
didn't have a big following. I
Mhm.
think I was definitely like 5K or 6K or something like that, which is decent, but it's definitely not anything that you can just like leave your career and be like,
Right.
I'm just gonna make this work now. So there was definitely like a lot of anxiety, but also like determination to like make something work out. And I was always gonna try and make something work out. And I'm just very thankful that something has. And of course, there's still a lot of uncertainties going forward. I don't know what the future of Waj is going to look like. do I go back to full-time medicine? Do I stay in crypto full-time? But I'm very content with like where I am right now, and I just want to like keep offering value because for me that's like the one thing that gives me so much satisfaction.
Hmm. For sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. Okay. Well, I think I'd like to transition a little bit to some of your thoughts about crypto itself and maybe some of the things that you're bullish on. I know you've posted a lot about ETH, and there's a lot of differing opinions right now. A lot of people are very bullish ETH. Some people are, less bullish ETH, more on other ecosystems, Solana and such. I wanted to hear your take on what do you think the future of smart contract chains looks like.
The future of smart contract chains, I think is pretty bright, and I think you could probably say the same thing as well, right? Every
Hmm.
single week we see new, like more and more applications coming out to the market, and all of this competition drives innovation. I think you can pretty easily say that the apps that we have today are much better than the apps that we had last cycle, and I'm sure next cycle will say the same thing about the apps that we have today. Um, in regards to like ETH, I think that's been a really interesting debate. For me anyway, like I think there's a difference between ETH, the kind of ecosystem and application layer,
Hmm.
and like ETH, the asset. I think like the application layer and like the user experience for people using stuff on Ethereum or other even other layer ones has like never been better before. Like we have, I think like using apps, especially from a UI and UX, is actually really good. Especially when you compare it to like TradFi apps. But like, of course, like ETH the asset is a different topic
Right.
altogether. Yeah, I think I've been pretty bearish on ETH the asset, but that's for a whole range of other reasons.
Hmm.
I think in general, I'm pretty excited about the types of apps that we have today. I think last cycle DeFi really dominated, but this cycle we're seeing like a whole range of other apps that are not just about speculation too. You've got various different consumer apps that are coming out now that have obviously crypto tokenomics and crypto rails around them, but don't actually focus on this idea of speculation, which I think
Mm.
crypto's main use case has been. You've seen the rise of stable coins. There's so many different cool things that you can do with them. There's different types of stable coins. Security across the industry has got a lot better. I think overall, like, I think everyone can clearly see that these smart contract network layers have only gotten better and probably will only get better, especially now that we have things like AI and kind of other sectors as well popping up. So
Mm.
yeah, I think to answer your question, very excited to see where the future goes. I think today clearly shows that we've developed a lot. And yeah, I'm interested to hear like what do you think? Like, do you agree with me or do you have?
Absolutely. Oh yeah. The future is very bright, I think, for Ethereum ecosystem, specifically for builders. Even though they've been kind of in a rough patch for the last few like months to years, it feels like. I think going into next administration for sure, if we get some additional, regulatory clarity around how to actually proceed with um, creating tokens and being able to sell these things in a way that doesn't get you in trouble, I think we'll see a big resurgence in DeFi and people like buying DeFi coins, but actually using DeFi applications a lot. People still use DeFi applications a lot right now, but maybe less so than they would if this stuff was a lot easier to and more obviously safe to use, right?
So, so
Um,
just to go back onto that one, do you think like the state of DeFi apps still need a lot of work before like we can really get a lot more use?
I actually agree a lot with your idea that there is the apps themselves. I think are pretty well polished, especially against like Web 2 financial services for sure. I think some stuff should still be abstracted that maybe isn't so. Stuff like omni-chain liquidity and different like DeFi strategies maybe could be made a little bit easier. But in general, I think the experience right now for people who kind of look into it a little bit is pretty solid. There's a lot of standardized ways to proceed. So yeah, I think it's not terrible, but definitely bullish on the next few years for ETH. So yeah, and I think
Fair enough.
you mentioned that you're bullish on the space. I am as well, but less bullish maybe on the asset itself. So maybe we should get into What specifically, you're less bullish on there? Maybe we can talk about that a little bit.
I guess like ETH the asset had this idea of being money, ultrasound money.
Mm.
And I think like that has changed a little bit, possibly because of the way that market participants have participated this cycle. I think we all know that this cycle, Solana has been like the layer one chain for the cycle, and possibly that's because of the meme coin activity that is there. You have to remember that there was a lot of meme coin activity on Ethereum last cycle as well. I remember buying meme coins on ETH and paying like $100 in gas fees, like casually, because that's kind of how much it costed. And Gwei used to be so high that there wasn't any other option for it. And I think like ETH, the layer one has definitely lost that a little bit. I think partially because of also the rise of L2s, which has meant that a lot of the activity that would have been on the L1 chain itself has moved on to these L2s, and that's been great for users because as a user I have to pay like a fraction of a cent now. I can do like hundreds of transactions. It hardly costs me anything. It's super quick as well. Don't ever get congested. If there's an NFT mint, which happened a lot last cycle, it's not a problem.
Right.
If there's like a really big DeFi launch, like not a problem at all. Like you can do it all on L2s, and there's so many of them now, right? Whether it's like the optimistic rollups like Arbitrum and Optimism, or the ZK rollups, there's like so many different chains. There's more chains than people can actually name off the top of their head now. But ultimately, that has come at the expense of ETH the asset, because previously, a lot of the revenue that ETH the asset that would make it this ultrasound money was coming from a lot of these apps. And I think like recently we've seen, even some of the biggest apps on Ethereum itself, the likes of Uniswap, realize that they want to capture a lot of this extra revenue for themselves. I think Uniswap ended up giving away like almost $1 billion over the last few years because of from revenue, the
Right.
likes of MEV back to Ethereum, and obviously Uniswap probably want to capture that themselves. Hence why they're going with the Uni chain. So I think that plus like the other reasons with like the rise of other layer ones like Solana, probably even more so when we see like BeraChain and some of these other EVM chains launch, Monad as well. They are just kind of taking away market share, and I think
Mm.
ETH L1 always has its place. It's like the most secure chain in the world, other than Bitcoin, I guess. But like, yeah, I think that has really taken a lot of value from ETH, the asset itself, and I think that's probably why I'm a little bit bearish on it right now. I think you combine that with the fact that like ETF flows haven't been as strong as people anticipated,
Right.
and it just makes you think like, what's actually going on here? Is ETH the asset that I thought it was? Is ETH the asset that it was last cycle? I'm not too sure.
Yeah. It's I think that perfectly captures how people are feeling right now. They're just so confused as why
Yeah.
ETH just
Um,
isn't pumping as much as they expected. But at the end of the day, you got to sit in your conviction. I think. I mean, the public or the tokenomics of ETH are very public. I think people understand how it works. You know, whatever happens in these markets will happen, but over the long term, I think uh, we'll get some decent price appreciation at some point. But
I
yeah,
think
that's
the
fair enough.
appreciation. I think the appreciation will come eventually when we have
Mm.
like thousands of roll-ups. Whilst we're in this like interim phase of like just having like less than 100 roll-ups, but like more than 10, we're just seeing like a lot of the value capture that the ETH L1 chains
Right.
have like go to them. But like that will come back eventually. And eventually, if we do have like let's say 10,000 roll-ups, and all of them are paying like 5% of their revenue back into ETH, then I think that should add up enough that actually, if the asset should be able to get some value capture from that. But I feel like we're still a bit of time away from that.
For sure. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe we can talk about BeraChain a little bit then, because that is the chain I've seen you putting out content about a decent amount recently as well. And it's the chain where you're actually building out IVX right now. So maybe, tell us a little bit about BeraChain, your thesis on BeraChain. What are you excited for specifically?
Absolutely. I think you like DeFi, I like DeFi, and I think there's no better chain for DeFi than BeraChain. I guess like the main reason is like just from the proof of liquidity concept. I mean, the thesis is pretty simple. You have a lot of chains. I think if you go on DeFi Llama, you'll probably see that on the chain section there's like 320 chains or 330 chains. The vast majority of them are proof of stake chains. But if you actually look, like 80% of those chains have like a TVL of like less than 50 million. They're ghost chains. The But the problem is like with as their proof of stake chains, you have these validators who will keep validating on those chains because those block rewards are still valuable. A lot of those chains that have really low TVL still have market caps for their governance tokens like 100 million plus.
Right.
It makes a lot of sense for them to just carry on validating and not. I mean, they don't really care, do they? As a validator, you're just trying to maximally attract as much as you possibly can, and that's one of the things that we see with a lot of these proof of stake chains today. There isn't this alignment between like the validators and the block rewards that are coming in and the ecosystem. And I think if there was, what you'll find is a lot of these ghost chains won't actually be ghost chains. They'll actually have pretty thriving ecosystems. And so that's what BeraChain fixes, right? It basically aligns the incentives of validators and ecosystems together. And it does that through proof of liquidity. So now you have like validators who are forced to give out these block rewards to the ecosystem, and the validators actually have to work for their money now. They can't just like run this node and just leave it on 24 hours a day and just keep claiming the revenue. Now they have to actually go into the ecosystem, do deals with all of these different ecosystem projects that they're particularly bullish on. Send the emissions to them and then do bribe deals. A bit like how Curve and the
Mm.
VECRV model worked, but just at a chain level. So I think like, I participated in the Curve Wars. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was like one of the most fun times for me in DeFi. And to just abstract that to a chain level is like taking it to another level, really. So I'm very excited for that. Ultimately, as someone who loves to farm, as someone who loves to like deploy capital in like a variety of apps, I know that that means that I'm not going to be just earning like trading fees and like the native ecosystem tokens. I'm also going to be earning like BeraChain tokens, like
Mhm.
BGT as well on top of that. That additional layer of rewards just means that everything is just going to be supercharged on another level. So like it's just like imagine if like you were able to like participate in like any DeFi app, and on top of that you were able to earn like ETH or Solana like as block rewards on top of that.
Right.
So yeah, I think that's pretty cool, and I think because of that, what we've seen is on BeraChain, there's like a ton of novel, new, innovative ecosystem apps that we've never seen before. So I like the idea of innovation. I like trying new things, and if there's new apps with new mechanics and new farms and
Right.
new things to do, like I'm pretty excited for it. And I guess the last thing to just cap it off really is like BeraChain has an ecosystem, and the chain's not even live.
Right.
Normally, like when you see a new chain launch, they launch the chain and then they do like this 50 million or 100 million ecosystem grant program, and it takes like over a year before there's any actual meaningful activities to do. So one of the kind of cool metrics that I think is like pretty valuable. I think Jani from the Honey Jar mentioned this. Total number of activities to do is much better than TVL. And like on
Mm.
BeraChain, like because there's already like 150, 200 apps that are going to be live, there's just going to be a lot of activity, so many things that you can do. And they can be like really right curve, sophisticated derivative instruments that you're using, where you're taking like yield generating products and like leveraging up on them. Or they can be like completely left curve stuff, like using consumer apps, Puffpaw, which is like vape to earn, or like, some fitness apps, or like um,
Right.
other kind of left curve DeFi Ponzi's like we've seen in the past with like Olympus and Wonderland and stuff like that. So for me, it's like the perfect environment of like a new ecosystem with tons of activity, tons of new mechanics, tons of things to do, and amazing yields. I'm very excited for that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it has a real presence on crypto Twitter and social media. It feels like, and that's one thing that like you love to see for a project that doesn't have a token, right, or isn't live yet. Is like same with Hyperliquid. There's so many people invested in this project and using the applications already. When it eventually does come out, you can expect it to have a much larger impact than its peers at what it's doing.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Absolutely. I think those non-tech elements like really matter a lot, and I think
Sure.
that's why we're seeing so much attention going to BeraChain, going to Hyperliquid, going to Monad, going to maybe you could argue that even Movement and Initia are kind of in that category as well. But like obviously there's so many other chains as well. How do you kind of stand out? And I think that's like one way that these guys have done a really good job with so far.
Absolutely. And it's been so good that you guys decided to actually build an options protocol on it. So maybe we can get into IVX a little bit. Let us know about that.
Yeah, interestingly, we were actually planning to launch on like an ETH 2 to begin with, but like we kind of changed the product a little bit. Now, for those of you who are listening who don't know, IVX is an options AMM, and in our team we've all worked or we've all participated in a lot of option protocols. We really like options as a whole, but like there was one type of product that just hadn't really existed properly on chain, and that's like 0 day to expiry options. These options that expire within 24 hours. They're great because they give you incredible amounts of leverage. And of course, you don't have to worry about those risks that you have with perpetual markets, like funding rates and like liquidations, especially when you're trading with high leverage. So for like trading the news or trading short-term narratives, like a 0 day to expiry options is actually a really, really good instrument. But what comes with that high leverage is like an instrument that's very exciting. It gets your adrenaline going when you're trading it. And we just thought like, actually being on like a more corporate feeling, like boring L2 chain is not really the right place to be. We need to be somewhere fun. And I think there's nowhere better that's fun and DeFi native than BeraChain. So it was great for us because we were like, I think we were one of the first derivative to like build on BeraChain. What comes with that is a whole range of other network effects as well. And so yeah, so far it's been really, really great. Our product's done, just waiting for mainnet, I guess, and
Hmm.
it'll be live for everyone to use. But yeah, you can use it now on testnet. It's pretty cool.
Very cool. Yeah. IVX is very exciting. And I think definitely for retail users, at least, like 0 day to expiration options are extremely important. Um, and a lot easier to like kind of speculate. I remember reading in I think 2021 or 2022 that the daily notional volume of 0DT options and TradFi was something like absurd, like hundreds of billions.
Yeah.
And it's like the market is so unbelievably massive in TradFi, right? Like surely some percentage of that should work its way into crypto and hopefully like on-chain options. So yeah, I think what you guys are building should fill a pretty big market demand at some point. I know DeFi options right now are not in the greatest spot ever, but people are still building, people are still optimizing their protocols and improving their products. So it's exciting to see what comes out of that.
Yeah, I
Uh,
think it's a case of just like trying to offer a product that like retail can use easily as well. I think like, both Bob and I like we use DeFi every single day. We use as many different chains as we can, and like we have a lot of experience with like what a good app is and what not a good app is. So I think like trying to optimize and make things better, avoid things like fragmentation, avoid liquidity fragmentation, make the UI UX like really clean, make it easy to on ramp. Like reduce as many buttons as possible, make it simple,
right.
make it fun as well. I think those are like really core components that we tried to make when it came to building this app. And yeah, I mean, options is what we're starting with, and there's going to be a whole range of kind of sub products that come with that as well over the next 12 months.
Very cool. Interesting. I didn't know that actually.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't think many people do.
yeah. And do you guys plan on remaining solely on BeraChain with IVX or maybe expanding in the future based on market demands, probably?
Yeah, I mean, it's very early days. I mean, the app's not even live, the chain's not even live
Right.
yet. So I guess we have to see kind of where things go. I like the idea of like just staying on one chain and like being there, growing your community there, and like as the chain develops as well, like you as an app can develop.
Mm,
I think there's always ideas about kind of other chains as well. It's always nice to like explore them as well, but I think it's for us anyway. It's like way too early to even think about that right now. One of the worst things about moving to another chain is like you have to kind of start again when it comes to
Right.
like you gotta spin up a whole new liquidity pool. You have to kind of tap into a new audience. And you're essentially fragmenting your users a little bit as well. There are some models that are really interesting, like Vertex, who are a perp Dex, and they have like one single pool that powers all of their chains. So for them, it doesn't matter like how many chains they're on. They could be on like 20 chains. It doesn't change anything. But like, yeah, I think it's something that, well, of course, everyone thinks about. But I think for us, like BeraChain is like a really exciting place to be right now. I wouldn't want to be anywhere else right now. And yeah,
Mm,
I'm very happy that we've made that decision to launch here.
that's very cool. Nice to hear. Yeah.
Have you been able to like explore BeraChain much yourself?
I've used some apps on the testnet, um, but I haven't been as active in BeraChain as like the Ethereum ecosystem in general and like L2s. But I'm excited for their launch. I know a lot of people who are building on it, decent amount of people who have projects on it, including you guys. So it's gonna be very cool, and I think it's gonna like change a lot of the discussion, especially on crypto Twitter when it comes out. Because there's gonna be so many people on it. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it should be a very interesting thing to see play out. I just wanted to ask, since you guys are building an options protocol, what has been your like experience with on-chain options and just the options space in general?
I think options are great. You know, they offer such a different way to kind of trade markets. You have to remember that, like, as a user, you don't always have to buy options. You don't always have to be like the one speculating. You know, one of my favorite things to do is actually to just sell options, and selling options can be like a really good income strategy. You can think of it a little bit like I think this cycle we've seen a lot of people do like delta neutral
Hmm.
funding rate arbitrage on like hyperliquid and stuff. Whenever funding rates are pretty high, you can kind of create option strategies like based on that as well, where you can like sell options and hedge out your exposure, and you've got like an income generating strategy there. So like I think options are great. I think when it comes to on-chain options, perhaps at times like they're not packaged in the best product possible. And these are some of the things that I mentioned where like the UI UX isn't very easy to understand, or it can be a little bit complicated. There's so much noise happening on the screen. Often there might be some fragmentation, and there might not be very good liquidity in the strike
Right.
prices that you want to buy. So yeah, at times like there can be some issues. I think like for us, like we've created a product that doesn't really exist. A lot of people, a lot of the option protocols are very um, kind of serious and like almost TradFi-esque when it comes to like how their product looks and appears. But like for us, we're creating like a completely retail focused product. This is clear. This is a product for people who love to trade, who love to use high leverage. That's what zero DTEs are, I guess.
Mm,
So yeah, I think one of the other things is like there aren't that many option protocols, especially if you compare to like perps. There's like hundreds
right.
of perp protocols, hundreds of them, but like there aren't as anywhere near as many. And it's nice to see like new option protocols come about, but they're just inherently a little bit more sophisticated and a little bit more difficult to build out. So yeah, naturally it takes a little bit longer, and competition drives innovation as well. So when you have a lot of competition like in the pub space, you end up getting some really, really good products. And I think we are getting there with options as well. I think it's just a case of like it just takes a bit of time.
Hmm. For sure, I think so too. I wanted to ask one of the questions that I've asked a few of the other people that have come on. Do you think the on-chain option space suffers from like I mean, relative to like perps and just centralized like options on centralized exchanges, seems to be doing by far the worst in terms of being a speculative instrument. Do you think that's because there's just a lack of liquidity? Do you think it's a lack of experience for people or like knowledge on how to use these products? Yeah, what's your take on that? I guess.
I personally think it's a mixture of everything. At times, right, you can go on centralized exchanges, like you could even go on Binance, right, and you can look at some of the options, and the order books are like super thin. And so, actually, when it comes to like exercising your options, like the slippage that you get is terrible. And so, yeah, I think like liquidity is definitely one thing, and we tried to solve that with like one pool, and like that kind of helps to solve some of those problems. Um, I guess the education part as well. I think people in general, like pubs are easy, right?
Mm.
There's a green button, there's a red button. You just click
And
whichever
there's a
one you
leverage slider.
want. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
literally it. It's very simple and to understand. But like with options, like how do you know like which strike price to go for? And like you have all of these other things that you have to think about with the option Greeks. So it is inherently just a little bit more tricky. So education is like a really important part. That's something that we do a lot of. Like we have within our app, we're developing something called IVX Learn, which has like these walkthroughs and guides and a lot of in-house education that we've built as a team to teach people about options. But also like just the idea of just keeping things simple. Yeah, I think even within our testnet, we've basically created this thing called degen mode that just has a green button and a red button and kind of keeps things really, really simple. You can make options simple actually. They don't have to be super, super complicated. They can be simplified. Do you think like that's like another thing? Ultimately, I think if you create a product that is easy to use, you can provide education with it alongside, with a really nice UX. I think people will use it. I think look, pups are easy and always will be easy, especially compared to options. But I don't think that means that pups are always better than options.
Right.
Both both have pros and cons, right? There's times when a pup is going to be better than an option. One of the times when we think that options are better is when trading the news or trading low time frames or trading narratives, especially with high leverage. So that that's why zero DTs are so popular.
For sure, yeah. And it makes a lot of sense, you know. I'm sure like crypto options or specifically DeFi options will take like a decent market share when the industry is a lot more matured out, I suppose, because they are just such an important instrument in TradFi, you know, and a lot of these asset managers know how to use them. They prefer, I mean, they probably haven't used perps before, although they're not that hard to get into, but I think it gives them a lot more risk management, which is very important for people like that. So, yeah,
Yeah, it'll happen with time. Like once the infrastructure gets better and once there's like more liquidity, which is going to
yeah,
happen in time. Like apps are only getting better and better options. They're not getting worse. They're getting better.
for sure.
So yeah, we will get to a point in time where like we will have some super option protocols that will actually get a lot of volume, a lot of users as well. I think it's just a
Mhm.
matter of time.
Awesome. Okay, well, let me just check. I think we've covered most of the topics today. Maybe we can just talk about. I did see that you put out a post about advice that you'd give to people trying to build a brand in crypto. I think that post was actually very insightful, very thought out, and well done. And maybe we could cover a little bit of that here if you'd be down.
Yeah, yeah,
Just some of the like high level ideas for people who want to get into crypto. They don't really know what to do or how to get involved in the space. Maybe some of your experiences that would help them.
yeah. So I guess there's two questions there. Like first of all, like building a brand, and then like secondly, like for people coming new into the space, what they can possibly do. I guess like the first part, like building a brand, I think it's like one of the most important things to do. Like we're in 2024, everyone needs to have some kind of presence on social media. I think like nowadays, like things like your Twitter profile are like your CV. It's one of the reasons why I have a job at IVX.
Yeah,
That is literally one of the reasons. So I think like growing your own personal brand is like a really, really important thing to do. Not only for like it being like part of your CV, but also because of the opportunities that come with it as well. As I said right at the start of this podcast, I actually used to make YouTube videos about medical school. Like I had this idea of like building a personal brand around being a doctor, which obviously didn't work out in the end. But like I think the core concepts of why I started it in the first place, remain to be the same,
hmm
which is creating content can like teach you a lot. It's like a way of like having this kind of permanent piece of information about yourself on the internet that you can always go back on and reflect on. I can always go back and see like my old videos and see like what my thought process was like, the kind of things I was interested in, and like I think that's a really great way to see my development over time. Um, you know, one of the other things is like, every single piece of content that I create is essentially like a product.
Mm.
And for me, digital products are like the best products to make, because like once you create it once, you can like always sell it forever. If I make a video on like, let's say, I don't know, something to do with Ethereum or Bitcoin or whatever, even 5 years down the line, there might be people who will still be interested in that piece of content. And that content can bring you revenue, can bring you income. There's lots of opportunities that you can do to monetize that piece of content. So I think like in general, like making content is like one of the best things that you can do. It's like, you make it once, you sell it forever. Yeah, I think like that's again like another reason why like I really like it. And also I think for me anyway, one thing that I think doctors do a lot of is teach. Like doctors have to teach medical students. When you're in medical school, you like teach your peers. It's like one of the best ways to learn, actually. If you can teach something to someone else, it kind of reinforces ideas yourself, and it also means that you have a good idea of like what's going on. Like, so for me as well, if I want to like prove to myself that I actually understand a new concept, let's say, Eigenlayer, when it came out last year, or the idea of Eigenlayer came out, it was quite a new concept. And like, I'd say that at the start, I didn't really, grasp like the whole idea behind it. And like, by making content, by forcing myself to like make some videos or like make some threads on it, I basically teach myself these new things. And I know in future there will be like new crypto concepts that come out that I'll have like no idea about. But like through the process of content creation, I'm able to learn a lot of that myself. And I think it makes me better when it comes to thinking, when it comes to kind of my way of learning about ideas and kind of using those ideas for future products that I make as well. So I think in general, like making content is like a great thing to do. I recommend everyone to do it, for like all of those reasons really. And I think even yourself, like with this podcast, it's such a great thing. You're gonna look back at these videos in like a few years time, and you're gonna be like, man, why did I do it like this, or why did I do that? But I think it's so great as part of your journey as well to like do this. I mean, I do it all the time. I look at videos that I made like 6 months ago, and I'm like, man, this is terrible. But that's just part of the development
Yeah, for
process.
sure, for sure.
So I guess that's that when it comes to like content creation. Like I said, it has a wide range of benefits, and I think everyone should do it. Like when it comes to like people entering crypto and like not knowing what to do to begin with, look, I don't have a technical background. I didn't study computer science, I studied medicine. And so for me, like the opportunities really came around like the non-tech space in crypto, and like that's probably one of the most growing spaces at the moment, just because there is a need for like non-techies around all of these different applications that we're building today. And so there's so many things that you can do. Like if you want to roll in crypto, you can go into growth, you can go into strategy, you can go into content, you can go into marketing. You can like there's like literally it feels like there's an infinite number of roles available. The first thing that I did was just literally start out with writing and like putting your work out there. And I think like that's again links and ties into what we just talked about before, where like people will be able to see your work. It's kind of like your CV in some sense, where people will be able to look at it and see like, oh, look, this guy's got some really interesting ideas. This guy is able to like consistently put out this work. He clearly knows what he or she is
Mm.
talking about. So yeah, I think like that's one of the great things to do if you're starting out. Otherwise, just participate at a protocol. Find a protocol that you really really like. It can be in any sector. It can be in AI, deep in meme coin infrastructure, literally whatever. But just find something and like kind of show the team that are working there like your enthusiasm, your participation, and often you'll find that you'll be able to get rewarded in a variety of different ways. Who knows, maybe you could get an ambassador role there, maybe an advisory role there, maybe even one day they'll add you to their core team. Like I think that's like a way that I've seen a bunch of people kind of get roles in crypto, and I think yeah, it's pretty cool. I think crypto is like one of the industries that people are just so friendly. Everyone's so
Mm.
open. You can DM anyone. It doesn't matter if they've got like 100K followers or like 2 followers. Like you can literally DM anyone, and most people like will get back to your reply. So I think yeah, being in such a friendly industry does offer these doors open to you, if you kind of contribute and show your worth.
Absolutely. Yeah, I really like two of your ideas. Thing about selling your product forever, right? Like one thing that I notice even on my channel, which is like really small relative to what's out there, is like you'll put something out and then something will gain interest at a later point. You'll have a video that, oh, it underperformed, whatever. And then at some point later down the line, the project does something and it brings a lot of excitement. And it's like, you know, your work came to fruition in a way. So that's a really, really, really interesting thing about content. I highly advise people that want to get into it to get into it because it's very useful and important in this industry specifically too. And yeah, this idea of people getting into it from just contributing, getting jobs from contributing. I think that's definitely the way to go. As you said, people are very friendly. A lot of founders will just talk to you about product and stuff if you have questions for them or if you're interested in their project. So, it's a good industry to be in for that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's like one of the things that I love so much about this industry. Like you can contribute in so many different ways. You could literally just give product feedback or like actually, help out with some BD, you could like you might have a link and you might have this opportunity where you think, actually, you know what? This app and
Mm,
this app could really work together actually, and you could be the orchestrator for it. So, yeah, I think crypto is like one of the industries that lets you do stuff like that, even if you actually have no role in the
right.
project whatsoever. And there's lots of ways that you can get rewarded for that on top of it.
Awesome. Well, I think we've had a pretty good discussion. I think we've covered everything that we wanted to talk about. So thank you so much for coming on, Wash. It's been real pleasure talking to you, getting to know you
Thank you
more
very
as
much.
well.
Yeah.
Hopefully, we'll have you on again at some point. Get your insights about BeraChain maybe when it launches. So, yeah, thanks again for coming on.
No, I'd love that. And yeah, always down to talk about anything, anything to do with crypto on chain. It's like one of my favorite things. I live and breathe it every single day. So yeah, I think
Absolutely.
even if people who are watching this want to ask me a question about BeraChain or IVX or why I'm bearish on ETH, feel free to ask me anytime. I'm always happy to have a nice friendly debate.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again. We'll catch you guys next time.
See you guys.
Peace.